Well, we're getting to the final frontier when it comes to the foundational frame part of stuff. So we've got the whole back done, rocker panels done, and I love it because it's kind of like that. It's enveloped the Cadillac chassis on the sides along the rocker panel. So that thing is solid, not going anywhere. So we're this far, all the way, everything right up to here, welded all the way around. And then we've got to fix this part. Let's see. Screwdriver. We've got to finish the frame. So when we cut the Cadillac chassis off, or the Cadillac body off, and separated the chassis, there's a lot of a lot of parts that are like, oh boy, how's this car going to hold together? So I screwed those two pieces of angle iron on underneath the Cadillac subframe so it catches the back independent suspension and then up to the front, up to about the firewall area. So we can actually take those off now. And it was just 2-inch angle iron, so it's not like it was going to hold the whole Cadillac rigid, but it would let me see and know for sure that nothing moved, and nothing has moved. It's straight as a die all the way along. After all the welding and everything, I've checked it. The frame of the Cadillac along the partial frame, whatever it is, along the rocker arms there are straight. So yeah, so that's good. So then we've just got to connect. Let's see, we've got to connect the front part of the car that holds the engine in place to the body of the 49. And that's the unibody construction thing, right? That's how the car is held together. So we'll continue on with some 18 gauge, and basically what we have to do now is we've got to join this sort of frame looking thing, which is interesting, runs along the top, even with the top, or level with the top of the engine, and then down at the front. And there's also a kind of a frame under there too, so it's pretty solid. But the only thing is that if I left it like this would tend to, rock up. Like there's nothing holding it except the frame down there. So we'll join this to this shoulder right here, the doorpost, and that's going to give it total rigidity, hopefully. But you know what? You think about it. Okay, you're tearing down the highway, you go over a bridge or whatever, you hit a good bump on the front, and the force comes up, right? And it's going to carry back here, and it's going to push on this doorpost, which is solid down there, but the top, the only thing that's carrying that weight, right, or that impact, is these posts here. Once you get to the roof, it's no problem. Solid all the way back. This looks a little skinny there. So I'm going to watch these. Make sure you don't see any cracks forming. No, it won't be. It'll be fine. They're strong. The only questionable part is where they're joined top and bottom, and they're welded in the factory and then filled with lead to smooth them out. It'll work, not to worry, because we're not gonna do any, like flying over bridges or anything. So yeah, then we're gonna fill in all these parts. We've got to connect these springs somehow. They go down to a point down about here somewhere. There's a mount. And the challenge with these is getting them on, especially once you have the fenders on, because you can't see in there. And there is a tool that'll stretch those. I don't want to be fighting with those. They're actually dangerous, right? Like if they let go on you, boom, they go like a bullet. And so we want to have some kind of a safe way of taking those off and on. Seems like every project you work on needs special tools, and I think I've probably got 2 toolboxes full of special tools that I've made myself, because special tools can be really expensive. And not only that, you're working on something and suddenly you need that socket to put your four-wheel drive hub on or whatever. Well, it's much quicker to just build one than it is to order one online and wait for it, or drive downtown somewhere and try and find one. And some of those things are actually quite hard to find. So putting the hood springs on this 49 Chev, 49 to 54, they're notorious for being dangerous because when they're loaded or stretched, if you don't have some kind of a good tool to hold them securely as you install them, they can come apart and, poof, yeah, not good, a missile. So I wanted to make some kind of a tool, and I've seen different ones online, right? There's the rod, the 14-inch long rod with the hole in the end and the V in the other end, and somehow opening and closing the hood in sequence. I don't know. Anyway, seems awkward. Then there's the box that kind of goes on the outside, and then there's other ones that are go on the outside and trying to pull them apart. But I thought if you run something down the middle, it will not have to be that big. It doesn't have to be that overkill. It doesn't have to be that strong, because it's just straight on impact, strength, tensile strength. So basically what I did is a 3/8 piece of ready rod, or all thread, depending on whether you have a prime minister or president, and some tube that the ready rod will go into. Now, it just so happens that the shifter tube, the 3-on-the-tree shifter tube of one of our Chevs, is the right size. It's really a nice strong tube. I've used the whole length of it making special tools already, because I'm not using one. But if you got an extra spare one around or whatever, that's a good kind of rod. And then a piece of 1/2-inch solid here, 2 pieces here. The trick is that this bottom piece has to swivel so that when this is inside the spring, and you use hopefully an impact wrench or some gun or something to crank this up and stretch the spring, that the rod can turn, but this bottom piece can't turn, right? So that's why it has to swivel down there. And then the other part of it is the swivel also has to be held so that you can jerk this out, right? Pull it out when you've got the spring installed. Otherwise, you'd end up with this little piece stuck down there. So that was about the trickiest part of all, right? And then this piece, another piece of tubing with 2 nuts and the ends welded and a little hook, and just 2 nuts, against each other here to turn the rod. And that's it. Now, this, you got to watch. I'll put it this way so we're talking about the right direction. Shape this bottom piece so that it stays on its side of the spring loop, so that you can actually connect the bottom mount on there. It'll actually slide into that groove, and then you can pull this out, right? And it'll click into place. Actually, I just rounded my spring just a little bit too, just to make it easier. The challenging part of my car is that the bottom mount is missing. Now, I guess it was there when I cut the car apart. But that part is kind of right where the 49 Chev and the Cadillac merged together. So I've kind of had to design a new mount down there and figure out where it goes. And I've kind of don't know exactly how far the stretch is, but you get clues. Look at different pictures on the internet. Cars, guys are building with the fenders off. You go, oh, there's the mount there. And so I think I've got it in the right place. I mean, we'll know when we put it all together and the springs actually hold the hood open. I think that's what they're supposed to do. I've never seen one in real life. So part of my challenge was to find the place to mount the spring at the bottom and yet have clearance through all of my shenanigans with the piecing together the parts that join the 49 to the Cadillac. But I got it and it's looking really good. And look at this, up and down. And I can take these springs off and on quite easily. Now, I think once the fenders are on, again, that's always a challenge, right? If the fenders are off, it's not a problem. You can do the washer method and all that kind of stuff real easily. But when you've got fenders on, which, I don't know. I think probably when I assemble this car, the hood will go on before the fenders because they'll all be painted, and it's Yeah, yeah. You know, that's going to be the fun part. Hey, we'll talk about that another day, another year. So, yeah, this is the tool, the special tool. Works really well. You know, costs a couple bucks to build or whatever. Just to scrap it that's around. And very safe, secure, not too clumsy. Yeah, and I feel good using it. Yeah, then we'll finish off, you know, some little gussets on here so that this strength can carry down into this part. And it's going to be strong. Of course, we've got the firewall already made. It's already in place. But it doesn't have any strength this way yet until we put all of these, yeah, interesting little pieces, you know, like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it one little piece at a time until it's all closed. And then we'll paint it. It'll be done. So let's get to it. Earplugs in, gloves on, measuring tape. Yeah, here we go. Of course, this Cadillac is put together with so much foam spray and glue and caulking and stuff that I got fires going here all the time. And I tried to clean this all out, you know, like I cleaned the inside of the firewall out and burned it up as much as I could, but I still come across spots where I'll be welding along and then, you know, flames shoot out. It's really difficult welding inside of flames, black, smoky, muggy flames. And not only that, all that smoke and everything, if you're like this, it goes up in your welding helmet. It's not good. So you want to get as much of that out. Well, you want to get all of it out, because to get good welds, you have to have clean steel. This kind of stuff is easy to put on, hard to take off. But take some time and do it. It'll make your welding a lot. Well, you actually can't weld with this stuff, because just the smoke itself will destroy the shield around the welding, around the arc, and you won't get good welds. So let's finish this piece off here. All right, with all of these pieces in place now, looking really nice, and the spring mount at the bottom here, I need to bring this across this Cadillac beam here, right, where the strength rides in the Cadillac, right? It's going to again transfer the upward, or the weight of the front of the car when it comes upward on the wheels, up into the door posts or the window posts and back into one solid big piece. So what I've done is built this rectangular tubing box here, 18 gauge, bent it into metal braking and welded it along for one corner. So that is going to become the beam, the extension of this beam, and it'll go right in here. We'll just cut it, fit it in there nicely, and weld it there. Tea time went by, and there wasn't any. Okay, my mistake. Tea is here. Oh, wow. And puffed wheat squares.
Haven't made for a while.
And then for this bottom kind of trajectory here, we'll just put a little gusset down to the frame that we built for the Cadillac. Yeah. And one more thing, sometimes, maybe you do this, you find yourself just kind of working on a project and then you're standing back looking at it. And you're looking at it and looking at it, and you kind of just go drift into this kind of dream world where you're no longer being productive. It's important to stand back. Remember the days when we used to have a cigarette break? We knew how long to stand back, right? The length of a cigarette. I hope you don't do that anymore. I quit when I was 25, I think. No. 22, something like that. Anyway, and thank God. But there's a period of time there where we stand back and take a wide angle view of the project. Okay, whatever it is you're working on, I'm looking at this 49 Chev Cadillac merge thing. And you are thinking about the next steps and the way that you're going to creatively solve problems and things like that. And then it does come to a point where you're just in la la land, you're just dreaming, no longer productive, and bring it back. We need something like a cigarette, right, to measure that. Maybe set a timer. No, don't do that. Because you need to relax, right? You need some relaxed time where you can just think about things. And you know, this morning I came in here and I stood back and looked at this car because I cleaned the shop yesterday. It's always nice to stand back and look once the floor's clean, right? And you know, you see the disc brakes sticking out underneath the fenders. You think, you know, that's pretty cool. This car has independent rear suspension, independent front suspension, disc brakes all the way around, ABS brakes, you know, built by Cadillac, right? The whole set comes together, and then it's got all the drivetrain, you know, all the rear end and the front end and the engine, and not to mention things like, you know, if you have to buy a radiator and buy a gas tank and all those kind of things and buy the wiring and buy the electronics to run the engine, that stuff adds up like crazy. Steering columns, all of that stuff. Well, doing it this way, you know, I stand back now and I think, you know what, that was a pretty good idea, because now I've got all of that kind of stuff all put together. In fact, it remained together for about $5,000 worth of a Cadillac CTS, you know, in 06, that's about what they're worth. Otherwise, I would be looking at probably $30,000 to do it piece by piece. And so that's another reason for standing back sometimes, is that you kind of get to see that, you know what, this is what worked, that's what didn't work, and next time I'm going to build on what worked and scrap what didn't work. And that's how we become more and more creative, you know, as time goes on. You know, they say that old people are really wise. No, they're just experienced is all it is, really, because there's some old people that are really fools. But the thing is that standing back and taking stock, right, of what's worked out well, of what you planned well and what you did well, what you created well, becomes the foundation for the next thing that you can create, and you can create something bigger and better next time. I don't know what it'll be beyond this. Well, you know what, I have 51 two-door Chev hardtops sitting right on the other side of that wall. Yeah, that'd be a cool thing. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel, would you? Because, yeah, it just helps. We've got to get the momentum built, right? I work really hard on this. Believe I'm doing a good job. I'm getting lots of compliments and things like that. But it doesn't go to reach the guys that I want to reach until we get lots of, you know, subscribers and that kind of thing. The saying on YouTube is YouTube doesn't love you until everybody else loves you first. So go ahead and subscribe, like, do whatever, and I'll see you next week.